Welcome to the guide, Exile. In this guide, we will be discussing the various types of items that we can obtain at Path of Exile, and what makes them worth keeping or selling. Path of Exile is a pseudo-random loot-based action role-playing game, and with that comes an insane range of loot that can either have no value at all, or be worth more than everything you own. This can make it very confusing to figure out which items you should be identifying, keeping, vendoring, or putting up for sale. To start figuring out what items we should be looking for, let us first take a look at what variations these items can come in. As a heads up, this will be an information overload for many new players, and even veteran players, so think of this guide as a good reference, especially the written script, to recheck as you come across items. In Path of Exile, there are 4 rarities: normal, magic, rare, and unique. These rarities define how powerful an item can be. Looking at the normal rarity item, we can see that there are innate base stats, sometimes joined by an implicit stat. This is a base item in its raw form without any modifications. There are many base items for each item category, with certain item bases being better than other ones. Item bases are gated by level and stat requirements to equip, so stronger item bases will appear as you progress further into the game. These bases can be improved on by increasing their rarity above normal. Items above normal rarity will have explicit modifiers or affixes attached to them. Affixes are the modifiers that are seen underneath the innate and implicit stats of an item. Affixes come in the form of prefixes and suffixes. Each rarity can have a certain amount of each of these. The prefixes and suffixes have different pools of modifiers, and no two of the same prefix or suffix can roll on the same item. This means you cannot roll the prefix plus to maximum life twice on an item. Now that we have a handle on the rarities and number of affixes that can come on an item, what determines how good these affixes are? Well, this is determined by the item level of the item. Item level determines how strong an affix can roll on an item. The higher the item level, the better the affix that can roll on it. Each affix has their own tiers based on the item category that they are in. Each tier has its own numeric range to which it is bound. We consider the maximum tier affixes an item can roll Tier 1, and count up from there for preceding affixes, meaning that a Tier 1 affix is much stronger than a Tier 5 affix. For example, let's look at the suffix of fire resistance. Elemental resistances are unique in that they have the same tiers and ranges for each item category. Here are the affix tiers, item level requirements, and numeric ranges for fire resistance. As we can see, there are 8 total tiers that can naturally roll on items, and the Tier 1 numeric range is much higher than the Tier 8 range. It is important to note that an item can roll any affix tier at or below their item level for that item category. This means that even a maximum item level base can still roll a weak tier affix, making the probability of rolling a Tier 1 affix very rare. It is also important to note that using a Divine Orb will not reroll the affix tiers, but only the numeric ranges of the affix tier. This means if you obtain an item Tier 4 of fire resistance, which is 30 to 35%, a Divine Orb will only reroll the numeric value between 30 and 35. For reference, item level 84 is currently the item level required for most Tier 1 affixes, so it is the desired item level to identify and craft on. To ensure the best resulting innate stats, we will also want to be identifying and crafting on the best base items available for each item category. Now for this guide, we're just talking about what we should be picking up and identifying, and crafting will be for another guide. However, we will discuss which high item level bases we should be looking for when we talk about each item category. A great reference for checking what affix tiers exist, or what affix tiers you have found on an item, is PoEAffix.net, or the Path of Exile wiki looking under item affixes. These sites show all of the possible affix tiers and ranges that can occur on an item, as well as the item level required for the affix. This information is invaluable when determining potential item value or when trying to craft an item. Unfortunately, this is a manual process of affix and tier identification on items, and it can be very overwhelming to many new players. A nifty tool to sidestep the intensity of manually identifying which affixes your items have is the Path of Exile item and trade macro. To run this tool, we must have auto hotkey installed, and the GitHub landing page for the macro describes how to install and run the macro script. This tool lets you quickly find out all the information about any item in question by simply pressing Ctrl-C together while hovering over the item. It will provide innate damage per second calculations, all of the current affix names, their numeric ranges, affix tiers, and whether or not they are prefixes or suffixes. This is great for quickly seeing whether or not you have an item that has great affix rolls, or open prefixes and suffixes that you can craft on. Recall that you can craft guaranteed affixes onto items for relatively minimal currency with master crafting benches, as shown in my Beginner's Guide series. In general, rare items will always be stronger than magic items as they have more affixes. Rare items will also be stronger than unique items in most scenarios, making rares some of the best in-slot options. So this means we will want to be picking up and identifying all rare items that we come across more than magic items. So which affixes should we be looking out for that make rare items carry any value? Well, there are a lot of affixes that can occur on items, and there's no good way of just summarizing which ones to look for, since each item category has their own affix groups and tiers. So to get a grasp on what is good, we will take a look at all of the main gear slots and determine what affixes, prefixes, and suffixes are worth looking for on them. Before we go any further into the guide, remember that we can price check all of our items using PoE Trade. Here we can find items similar to our items by either searching the item at categories for similar affixes and ranges, or we can use Ctrl-C while hovering over an item to copy it into our clipboard and then import it into PoE Trade. From here we will of course have to loosen our affixes and ranges down to find similar items. It is important to note that prices for items will be much different depending on if you are buying and selling in a permanent league or a temporary league, and how long the league has been running for. Items will have a much larger value in the beginning of a league as there are less items flooding the market. This means that this guide will serve as a general basis of what to look for on items without specific prices. For this section, I will mention the current best item bases, Tier 1 bases, for each gear slot, along with any specific affixes we want to look for on each. I will not be covering jewels in this guide as they have many different purposes and combinations that can be of different values. They will instead have their own guide. Now before we get into each gear slot, we should take a look at important general affixes that can occur on most all gear slots. For general prefixes, we will be looking at two main build type resources, Life and Energy Shield. Builds can be pure Life, pure Energy Shield, or a hybrid of both. Energy Shield rolls can only occur on Energy Shield items and accessories, while Life can roll on all item category bases aside from weapons. For the most part, we will be looking for pure Life or pure Energy Shield items. Hybrid items do have a place, but are generally worth less on the market. For life-based items, we want to get plus to maximum life. After that, we want to look for plus to innate defense and percentage increased innate defense, in which innate defenses are generally armor and evasion. Energy Shield items will only have to worry about increasing their innate defense on the gear, which is Energy Shield, and can ignore getting any life. This means that we effectively replace plus to maximum life with plus to innate defense. Now that we have one more open prefix, Energy Shield will seek percentage increased innate defense and percentage increased innate defense and percentage increased stun and block recovery hybrid, where innate defense is Energy Shield. The tiers and numeric ranges for these prefixes can vary between gear slot and will be reviewed in each gear section where it is necessary. General suffixes to look for in all gear slots are elemental resistances. To carry value, each gear slot should at least have one high-tier elemental resistance. The tiers and numeric ranges for resistances are all the same for all item categories. Chaos resistance can also be valuable to certain builds. However, for the most part, Chaos resistance is a nice-to-have resistance rather than a mandatory resistance. Now that we know the general affixes that we can and want to find on most all items, let's dive deeper and look into additional gear slot-specific affixes that are useful paired with these general affixes. This will be a high-level assessment of affixes that we want to see on each gear piece, and for the most part we want to get some combination of the general affixes and the specific affixes at or above their master-crafted equivalent. This means they are basically above half of the respective Tier 1 values. As such, I will be mentioning affixes in order of importance on items, along with their Tier 1 roles. We will first review the core gear slots, which include helmets, body armors, gloves, boots, and shields. Tier 1 bases for helmets include the Eternal Bergnet, the Hubris Circlet, and the Lion Pelt. For helmets, we will be looking for the general affixes, with interest in a couple helmet-specific suffixes. For life-based items, you will want to be looking for the general prefix of life on armor or evasion bases with at least a value of plus 70 to maximum life. Increased innate defenses are useful as well, but not as valued as life. For suffixes, you will want more than plus 80 to total elemental resistances. This means you could have a 40% cold res and a 40% lightning res. Fortunately and unfortunately, life-based gear is very abundant and needs more than just this base to have more than a 1 chaos value. This goes for most other life-based gear as well. Getting more than 110 total elemental resistances or a high-tier intelligence or accuracy roll can land some decent value. For energy shield bases, you will want to take care in looking for high-tier general prefixes. This means high plus to energy shield and percent increased energy shield. This is because helmets are a main source of energy shield for energy shield builds. Helmets with very large innate energy shield, 300 plus, will be well sought after even with other affixes being average. In general, large innate energy shield items are more rare and valuable than high tier life items. Getting 2 high tier elemental resistances alongside a large energy shield base or a high tier intelligence roll will have a lot of value. Tier 1 bases for body armor include a Glorious Plate or Astral Plate for armor, a Val Regalia for energy shield, and an Assassin's Garb for evasion base. For body armor, we will be looking for the general affixes, with no body armor specific affixes. For life-based items, you will want to be looking for all the general prefixes on armor or evasion bases, with at least a minimum of 90 plus to maximum life. For suffixes, you will want more than 80% total elemental resistances, as with helmets, life-based body armors are very abundant and need more than just this base to have more than a 1 chaos value. As a note, body armors will have to compete with many best-in-slot unique body armors such as Belly of the Beast. Because of this, rare body armors will need really good affixes or to be 5 or 6 linked to hold any real value. Getting more than 110% total elemental resistances or very high innate defenses on a body armor can be worth a lot even unlinked. For energy shield bases, you'll want to take care in looking for high tier general prefixes. This means high plus to energy shield and percentage increased energy shield. This is because body armors, like helmets, are a main source of energy shield for energy shield builds. Body armors with very large innate energy shield, 700 plus, will be well sought after even with other affixes being average. Of course, getting 2 high tier elemental resistances alongside a large energy shield base will have a lot of value and should be price checked, regardless of if it's linked or not. Tier 1 bases for boots include Titan Greaves for armor, Sorcerer Boots for energy shield, and Slink Boots for evasion. Two-tone boots are also a solid base to look for in the higher levels. They have a hybrid innate defense, as well as dual resistance implicits. For all boots, you'll want to take care in looking for boots with a movement speed modifier. Boots generally need a movement speed affix above 20% to be worth anything. Pairing the movement speed with a high tier general prefixes, life or energy shield base, and 2 or 3 resistances can be worth a lot. If you do find a good pair of boots with no movement speed modifier but an open prefix, you can mastercraft on a fair movement speed with Torah. Tier 1 bases for gloves include Titan Gauntlets for armor, Sorcerer Gloves for energy shield, and Slink Gloves for evasion. Now some higher tier bases include Spiked Gloves for armor, Fingerless Silk Gloves for energy shields, and Gripped Gloves for evasion. These come with implicit stats on them, and are good for certain builds, but not all builds. Keep an eye out for these in high tier maps. For gloves, we will be looking for general affixes with interest in a few glove-specific affixes. For life-based gloves, you will want to be looking for the general prefix of life on armor or evasion bases with at least a value of 60 to maximum life. Increased innate defenses are useful as well, but are not as valued as life and other available glove-specific prefixes. Getting the physical damage to attacks prefix and or the percentage increased attack speed on these bases is desired and very valuable. You will want to look for at least 1 resistance if you get either of the previous glove affixes. Otherwise, look for more than plus 80 to total elemental resistances. As with other life-based gear, it is very abundant and needs these good rolls to be worth more than 1 chaos. Getting more than 110% total elemental resistances or both attack rolls can be of great value. As with other energy shield bases, you will want a high innate energy shield. However, gloves are not a massive source of energy shield for most builds and can get away with low energy shield. Energy shield bases are not always used in attack-based builds, but attack-based prefixes and suffixes are still very valuable. Plus to dexterity is also very useful on energy shield gloves, as many energy shield-based builds are starved for dexterity in their builds, and this could save them a passive point in the tree. Ultimately, you will be looking for similar priority and affixes for energy shield bases as life bases, just replacing the life rolls with energy shield rolls. Tier 1 bases for shields include a Pinnacle Tower Shield for armor, Titanium Spirit Shield for energy shield, and Imperial Buckler for evasion. For shields, we will be looking for the general affixes with interest in a few shield-specific affixes. For armor and evasion-based shields, you will want a large innate defense, roughly 800 plus, along with at least 80 to maximum life and 80 total elemental resistances. Getting a plus to all elemental resistance or an increased block chance in addition to the previously mentioned affixes can make for a very valuable shield. For energy shield bases, you will again want to find a shield with very large innate energy shield. This slot is a main source of energy shield for energy shield builds, so shields with very large innate energy shield, 350 plus, with elemental resistances will be well sought after. Energy shield bases can also get spell damage and spell critical strike chance, which is very valuable for all spellcasting builds. Keep an eye out for spell damage and or critical strike chance affixes alongside a very large innate energy shield, as it will make for a very, very valuable shield. Now we will take a look at accessory gear slots, which include belts, amulets, and rings. Belts are a special gear type in that they have many different implicits than just primary defense types, as well as being able to get many unique affixes. Here are the current belts and implicits that they have. Chain, cloth, and studded belt bases have undesirable or weak implicits, and therefore must have really good affixes to make up for this. Crystal and Vanguard belts only drop above level 78 and 79 respectively. Crystal belts are always worth currency regardless of their rarity, so to ensure to be on the lookout for these bases in high tier maps. We can see that belts can roll an assortment of special affixes aside from the general resources and resistances that we see in general affix sections. However, it is still important to look for high tier plus to resources and elemental resistances. You will also want to look for percentage increased elemental damage with weapons, as well as suffixes for flask charges and or flask duration. These affixes are very strong and valuable to most all builds. Getting any combination of these with resources and or elemental resistances on a decent belt base should definitely be price checked and could be worth a lot of currency. In general, amulets come with plus to attribute, either in pure or hybrid forms. This is a major slot in which most builds obtain a good chunk of their weakest attributes. At higher levels, there are also some more powerful amulet bases. This includes the blue pearl base and the marble base. There are many different combinations of affixes that can have value on an amulet. Finding an amulet with just high tier resources, around 70 life or 40 energy shield, and around 80 total elemental resistances will be worth a fair amount. But you could also look for more build specific affixes added alongside these. Let's take a look at some good affix pairings that can occur on an amulet. To start, you will want to look out for pure life or energy shield amulets. This means you will want to find amulets with plus to maximum life or plus to energy shield. Having flat energy shield paired with a percent increased energy shield is desired, and the other innate defense scalars, armor and evasion, are not as desired. Attack-based builds will be looking for weapon elemental damage and flat physical damage to attacks. Having both of these added together with other decent affixes will be very valuable. Spell-based builds will be looking for spell damage and or cast speed. Either of these can be paired with the life or energy shield rolls. One of the most valuable resistances you can get on an amulet is a high tier plus to all elemental resistances. This is because it provides an effective value to all resistances while only taking one suffix slot. Critical strike chance and critical multiplier paired together will be very valuable for any critical strike build, attack, or spell based. You will also want to take care looking for percent increased elemental damage, cold, fire, or lightning, as this can be used with spell or attack based builds, but is more build specific and will be more niche depending on the element that you get. In general, rings come with plus percentage to elemental resistance, either in pure or hybrid forms. This is a major slot in which most builds obtain a good chunk of their elemental resistances from implicits and explicit affixes. At higher levels, there are also some more powerful ring bases. These drop at and above level 80. The opal ring, which gives percentage increased elemental damage, and steel rings, which add flat physical damage to attacks. These ring bases, like crystal belts, will always have innate value even at their normal rarity. Always price check these if you find them. There are many different combinations of affixes that can have value on a ring. Finding a ring with just high tier resources around 60 life and or 40 energy shield, and around 110% total elemental resistances can be worth a fair amount. The reason we look for such high total elemental resistance is because rings have an innate resistance as well as their affix resistances. Like amulets, you can also look for more build-specific affixes alongside these resources and resistances. Let's take a look at some good affix pairings on a ring. To start, you will want to find pure life or pure energy shield rings. This means you will want to find amulets with plus to maximum life or plus to maximum energy shield. Attack-based builds will be looking for weapon elemental damage and physical damage to attacks. Having both of these together with other decent affixes will be very valuable. Accuracy in a ring slot with other attack-based affixes is also very valuable since rings have few offensive suffixes. Spell-based builds can really only look for percent cast speed and percent increased elemental damage, cold, fire, or lightning, for offensive stats. Remember that the percent increased elemental damage can be used for attack-based or spell-based builds. One of the most valuable resistances you can get on a ring, like amulets, is a high tier plus to all elemental resistances. This is because it provides an effective value to all resistances while only taking one suffix slot. Finally, we will take a look at weapon slots, which include quivers, attack-based weapons, and spell-based weapons. Quivers are used in tandem with bows and only have a few bases with worthwhile implicits. This includes the broadhead and spike point quivers. We can see that we can only get life-based quivers, so this means quivers are pretty straightforward. You will want to look for a high tier life, alongside as many of the listed quiver prefixes and suffixes that you can get together. Now weapons can come in two main forms, attack-based and spell-based. Recall from my previous guides, Beginner's Guide and Creating a Build, that attack and spell skill gems scale in different ways. For attack weapons, we will want to be looking for any affixes that modify just the innate stats of the weapon. This includes the physical damage, critical strike chance, attack speed, and possible addition of flat elemental damage. Attack-based affixes can roll on all weapon base types. However, there are one-handed and two-handed variants of these weapon types. These have different affix tier numeric ranges, which I will point out. I will first point out one-handed attack-based weapon bases and affixes. For one-handers, we have axes, claws, daggers, maces, swords, and wands, with the following tier 1 bases. Here are the two-hand bases: axes, bows, maces, staves, and swords, along with their tier 1 bases. As we can see, there is only a difference in the flat physical damage to attacks for the affixes for both attack-based weapons. For the most part, attack-based weapons will only hold value if they are fully rolled for attack-based builds, meaning no spell-based affixes. If they do get all attack-based affixes, they will also need to ensure that those affixes are of a high tier, mainly looking for flat and increased physical damage rolls in the prefixes, as well as attack speed and local critical strike chance in the suffixes. In general, it is pretty rare to find or craft a great attack-based weapon, so a good one can go for a really nice price. When you think you have found a decent one, make sure to price check it on PoE Trade. Spells do not benefit from weapon innate stats, so we will be wanting to look for global or spell-specific affixes on weapons. Here are the following weapon categories that these affixes can appear on, along with the best bases for them. We can have spell affixes on daggers, scepters, staves, and wands. Spell-based weapons are pretty straightforward, and not as hard to find as attack-based weapons. You will want to try and find percentage increased spell damage, along with critical strike chance and critical multiplier for spells, as a base. These are great general affixes for any spell-based build. Keep an eye out for percentage increased elemental damage, cold fire or lightning as well. This is just as powerful as spell-based damage for elemental-based builds, but of course, more build-specific. Added flat elemental damage to spells can be useful, but requires more specific builds, and can be a problem if you are utilizing elemental equilibrium, as most elemental builds do. As far as bases are concerned, daggers are the best for critical strike builds, as they come with implicit global critical strike chance, and scepters are great for elemental-based builds, as they have implicit elemental damage. So now that we've covered all the gear slots for rare items, let's talk a little bit about unique items. Path of Exile has an insane amount of unique items. Almost every base item has at least one unique, and because of that, it is near impossible for me to cover each one. Most uniques are designed to fit a niche, add unique mechanics, or provide useful bonuses for leveling. Just because they are unique does not mean that they will be better than the rare item for that slot. You will come across many uniques during your gameplay, and most of which will unfortunately have little to no value. I recommend that if you don't know how valuable a unique is, you check its name on PoE Trade to see what the general value of it is. If you are using an up-to-date item filter, they will generally bring valuable or rare unique items to the forefront via larger text and or filter sounds. This will help you identify which uniques do have some value before you bother price checking them. As a side note, uniques will always vendor for alchemy orb shards, so it may be worth it to you to vendor these even if they are worthless on the open market. Now, aside from rare and unique items that you will find while playing, you will also come across some special variations of items that are worth picking up for trading into the vendor. These complete vendor recipes that reward you with currency items. The chromatic recipe. You will want to look out for items with a linked red, green, and blue socket set. Trading this into a vendor will result in a chromatic orb. The jeweler's orb recipe. You will most definitely be wanting to pick up any items that drop with 6 sockets naturally. Trading these into the vendor will grant you a 7 Jeweler's Orbs. Quality Skill Gems. For the most part, all skill gems are now accessible via vendors in town, so regular level 1 skill gems will not be worth picking up. What you will want to be picking up are skill gems that have quality on them, adding a prefix of superior to their name. Trading a single gem with a 20% quality to a vendor will grant you a Gem Cutter's Prism. Trading in multiple skill gems with a combined value of 40% will grant you a Gem Cutter's Prism as well. Drop-only skill gems. Some drop-only skill gems to keep your eyes out for are Empower, Enhance, and Enlighten. These gems take a massive amount of experience to level up and only reach a maximum level of 3. Quality on these gems increases the rate at which they gain experience. Empower and Enlighten are the most valuable and worth leveling up in an offhand slot if you come across them. Empower provides plus levels to supported gems, and Enlighten provides a reduced reservation multiplier at levels 2 and 3. An uncorrupted level 3 Empower or Enlighten can go for numerous Exalted Orbs. Sorcerer Boots. Once you get to maps, you will start seeing the Sorcerer Boots base drop as an item in its normal rarity. Most item filters will outline this or make this base very visible. You will always want to be picking up these and chancing them with Chance Orbs. There is a very small chance of getting the Skyforth unique boots in this way that are worth a lot of currency. You may also get lucky and get a good pair of Ver boots as a byproduct. So in conclusion, I will leave you with some tips that I have for best sorting through the items that you come across. In the beginning of a league, say the first week or so, or if you are playing solo self-found, you will be wanting to pick up almost all decent base rare items and identifying them. What I generally do is pick up items until my inventory is full, identify what I collected, and drop what isn't worth keeping based on the advice from each item category. I continue this until I return to town or my hideout, bringing back a full inventory of items to vendor for orbs. As I progress further into the game and the league, I am more strict with what I pick up. I will only pick up and identify tier 1 bases from each item category, but still identify all accessory bases since these have the same implicits at all levels. Other than that, I am just picking up the miscellaneous items that I mentioned, and cruising through those monsters for that sweet XP. I hope that this guide has helped sort out what item affixes are, how they are determined, and what ones are worth looking for in each item category, and wasn't too much of an information overload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next guide, Exile.